The dust of Red Creek clung to the back of my throat as I guided my tired horse down the main street. The sun hammered the town mercilessly, turning the warped boards of the saloon into something brittle and dry, ready to splinter at the slightest touch. Folks were restless that afternoon. I could feel it in the hurried steps of mothers dragging their children indoors, in the way men lingered near the trading square as though waiting for something ugly to unfold, but I thought it was just another cattle deal, another horse trade, until I heard John Carver's voice. That voice cut through the air like a rusty saw, harsh and bitter, dripping with greed. I slowed my horse, turned the corner, and what I saw froze me in the saddle. Carver stood atop a crate, a cruel smirk on his sunburned face. His fists clamped hard on the arm of a young woman at his side. Her dress was faded, her shoes worn thin, but none of that dulled the grace in the way she stood. She was trembling. Yes. But she held her chin at an angle that spoke of pride refusing to die. Her eyes, deep brown, wide with fear but alive with fire, swept the crowd. And the crowd. Lord, the crowd was silent, like they knew what was happening wasn't right, but not a man among them had the backbone to say, "So'd she strong," Carver barked, yanking her forward as though she were a mule. "She cooks, she cleans, she'll keep a house running. I'll take coin, cattle, a deed, whatever's worth a trade. Who'll start the bidding?" A few chuckles rippled through the men gathered. One whistled. Another called out a number half in jest. My stomach turned. Never in all my years on the trail had I seen a woman treated this way, like she was a horse up for auction. And the worst of it was her father putting her on that block. The girl winced as Carver's grip tightened on her arm. Her lips parted, a faint, broken whisper slipping out that I couldn't hear her words, but I could see the plea in her eyes. She wasn't begging for a savior. She was begging for dignity, for someone, anyone, to remind her she was human. That was enough that I swung down from my horse and stepped forward. My boots struck the wooden planks of the square with heavy, deliberate sound. "That's enough, Carver," I said, my voice carrying so every man heard it. Carver's head jerked toward me, his eyes narrowing into venomous slits. "Stay out of this, Marston," he spat. "Unless you've got gold to put down, you've got no say in the matter." The men muttered. Some turned to watch me with curiosity, others with mockery, waiting to see if I'd back down. But I didn't. I reached into my saddlebag, pulled out the leather pouch of silver I had sweated months to earn on the trail, and tossed it at Carver's feet. The coins burst across the dirt, flashing in the sun. "But there's your gold," I said flatly. "Take it. But hear me clear, I'm not buying her. She's not property. She's free to choose whether she walks away with me." The square fell deathly silent. Carver knelt, his greedy fingers clawing at the silver, but he sneered up at me. "Fool. You wasted good coin on a worthless girl." Before I could answer, the girl tore her arm from his grip. She stood tall, her voice breaking but steady. "I'll go," she said, her eyes fixed on mine, not his. "I'll go with you." Carver lunged toward her, but the crowd shifted, murmuring in disapproval now. Even those too cowardly to stop him weren't willing to see him drag her back. He froze, his jaw tight with rage, then spat into the dirt. "Take her," he snarled. "But don't come crawling back when she ruins you." The girl stepped off the crate, her dress brushing against the dust, and came to stand beside me. She didn't touch me, didn't lean for comfort. She didn't have to. The way she squared her shoulders told me everything, that we mounted and rode out of Red Creek together. And though she said nothing, I could feel her silence more than any words. This was no rescue. This was the start of something far more dangerous. That we rode hard out of Red Creek, the sound of hooves echoing like thunder on the hard-packed trail. The sun was dipping low, turning the sky into streaks of fire and blood, casting our shadows long across the prairie. Neither of us spoke for miles. The silence wasn't empty, it was heavy, charged, carrying all the words neither of us dared say aloud. The girl Anna, I'd soon learn her name, rode with her back straight, her chin lifted, as though daring the world to challenge her. But I could see her hands shaking against the reins. Every gust of wind, every bird taking flight in the tall grass made her startle, as though expecting her father's voice to come roaring after her. That I slowed my horse to match her pace. "You ride well," I said, trying to break the tension. Her eyes flicked toward me, suspicious at first, then softening just slightly. "My mother taught me." Before she passed, "I'm sorry," I said quietly. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and she didn't answer. I didn't push. Some wounds aren't meant to be poked at in the first breath, that we rode until the land opened wide, the town nothing but a memory behind us. As dusk bled into night, we found a bend in the river where cottonwoods leaned over the banks. I dismounted, built a fire, and handed her a canteen of water. She drank deeply, as though she hadn't had her fill in weeks. When the fire caught, I brewed coffee in a tin pot, the scent sharp and bitter in the cool air. I handed her a cup. She wrapped both hands around it, letting the steam rise against her face. For a long time, she stared into the flames, the firelight painting gold across her cheekbones. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "You shouldn't have done it." "Done what?" "Paid him." Her fingers tightened around the tin cup. "He'll come after us. He won't let me go so easy. You put yourself in danger for a girl you don't even know." That I poked at the fire with a stick, watching the sparks climb into the dark. "I know enough. I know no woman deserves to be treated like cattle. I know a man who'd sell his own daughter is already damned in ways no money can mend. And I know you wanted to walk away, but had no one to stand beside you until today." Her throat worked as she swallowed hard. She looked away, blinking back the sting of tears. "All my life, he's told me I was a burden. Too much mouth to feed, too little worth. After Mama died, I stopped being a daughter and started being something to trade." Her voice cracked on the last words. She turned her face, ashamed of her own tears. That I set my cup down, leaned forward, and spoke low but steady. "Anna, you're worth more than gold, more than land, more than anything that greedy man could ever hold in his fists. Don't let his lies carve you hollow." She looked at me, then really looked. The fire reflected in her eyes, and for the first time, I saw the fear give way to something else. Something braver, something like hope. Silence fell again, but it was different now. Not heavy, softer, like the kind that comes when two people understand each other. Without speaking, we laid our bedrolls near the fire, the river whispering close by. She slept with her face turned toward the stars, and I lay awake a while longer, my hand resting near the revolver at my side. I knew Carver. I knew greed. Men like him don't let go easy. Somewhere in the night, as the wind swept through the grass, I promised myself that whatever came, I'd stand between her and the storm. The night was quiet at first, the fire crackling low, the river whispering steady. But a man who's lived long enough on the frontier learns to listen past the silence. I woke before dawn, the kind of waking where your body knows before your mind does that something's wrong. The horses were restless, stamping their hooves, ears flicking toward the dark horizon. I stood, my hand brushing the grip of my revolver, and scanned the plains. That's when I heard it, the faint rhythm of hooves, far off, carried on the wind. Too steady, too many. Carver's men. That I crossed to Anna and knelt, shaking her shoulder gently. Her eyes blinked open, heavy with sleep, until she saw my face and the urgency there. "What is it?" she whispered. "We have to ride." Now, she didn't ask why. She didn't complain. She only scrambled to her feet, gathering her things with trembling hands. I kicked dirt over the fire, grabbed the reins, and together we mounted up. The sky was just beginning to pale when we pushed our horses into a gallop. The air was cool, sharp in my lungs. Behind us, I could hear it now, the thunder of hooves growing closer, shouts carried on the morning wind. Carver wasn't letting go. "Hold steady," I shouted, glancing at Anna. Her hair whipped free of its braid, streaming behind her like a dark banner. Her jaw was tight, her hands white on the reins, but she didn't falter. The plain stretched wide, open and merciless, nowhere to hide. Then the sky above us rumbled, a storm rolling in. Black clouds swallowing the rising sun. Wind swept across the grasslands, bending the tall blades in waves. "That storm will cover us," I called. "If we make it through." Lightning split the sky as the rain came, sudden and violent, stinging against our faces. The earth turned slick beneath the horses' hooves, every step a gamble. Behind us, the riders cursed and fought the storm, their shouts growing distant, muffled by the roar of the rain. For nearly an hour we pressed on, soaked to the bone, until the world was nothing but mud and water and wind. Finally, When the storm's fury had beaten us near to breaking, I spotted a cut in the land, a shallow ravine lined with scrub and stone. We urged the horses down into it, half sliding in the muck, until we were hidden from the open plain that we dismounted, breathless, hearts pounding. I tied the horses under an overhang of rock, their sides heaving, eyes wide. Anna stood trembling, water streaming down her face, her dress clinging to her like a second skin, her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she stepped back against the stone wall and pressed her hands to her face. A sob tore out of her sharp, raw, the kind that comes when fear finally breaks loose. That I moved to her, hesitated only a moment, then set my hands gently on her shoulders. "Hey," I said, my voice low, steady. "We made it. We're alive. You hear me? You're safe." She lowered her hands, eyes red and wet, staring up at me. "He won't stop," she whispered, her voice breaking. "He'll keep coming until he has me back, or until you're dead." That my jaw clenched. "Then he'll have to kill me, because I'll never hand you over." Her breath caught, her gaze searching mine. For a moment, the storm outside faded. The world was just her eyes, wide and desperate, and the promise I knew I couldn't break. She stepped closer, her hand trembling as she touched my chest, right over my pounding heart. "Why?" she asked, voice cracking. "Why risk everything for me?" I swallowed hard. The words came rough, unpolished but true. "Because somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing this as just saving you. Now it's about needing you safe, because I don't know how to imagine the trail without you beside me." Her lips parted, a tear slipping down her cheek, but her eyes softened in a way I hadn't seen before. The fear was still there, but beneath it, something new, trust. She leaned into me then, not with passion, not yet, but with the fragile surrender of someone who had carried too much weight for too long. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her as the storm raged above, and for the first time, I felt her body relax, as if she finally believed she wasn't alone, that we stayed like that, two souls pressed against the stone, while thunder rolled and lightning carved the sky. And though danger was far from over in that ravine, with a storm between us and Carver's men, I knew we'd taken the first step toward something neither of us had dared dream of. The storm had passed by evening, leaving the plains drenched and heavy with the smell of wet earth. The sky cleared, stars scattered across it like diamonds on black velvet. The ravine kept us hidden through the day, but I knew Carver's men weren't quitters. They'd circle back, sniff out every trail, every bent blade of grass, until they found us again, that we rode on at dusk, keeping low, the ground still slick from the rain. The silence between us wasn't fear anymore. It was something tighter, a bond forged in shared danger. Every time Anna glanced at me, I caught at the flicker of trust in her eyes, fragile, but growing to be. By nightfall, we reached a cluster of cottonwoods by another river bend. I built a small fire, careful to shield it with rocks so it couldn't be seen from far off. Anna sat across from me, her hair loose now, still damp from the storm, tumbling in waves over her shoulders. She looked different in the firelight, not broken, not trembling, but stronger. That we ate what little jerky I carried, washed it down with river water. For the first time, she asked about me. "Why are you alone?" she asked softly. "A man like you. I'd have thought you'd have a wife waiting in some town, a family." That I chuckled dryly. "Had a chance once." She wanted a man who could settle, build fences, plant fields. That ain't me. I've been married to the trail, to the dust and sky. Safer that way. No one to lose. Anna studied me, her brow furrowed. "And yet you risked everything for me." That I looked into the fire, feeling the heat on my face. Maybe I was waiting for the right reason. The words hung heavy between us, the kind that could tilt everything one way or another. She didn't answer, but her eyes didn't leave mine for a long time. And in their depths, I felt something shift, not just gratitude, but a spark of something deeper, something dangerous in its own right. That we bedded down close to the fire. I lay on my side, revolver in hand, sleep tugging at me in fits. Then a sound. A twig snapped. That I was on my feet in an instant, gun raised. Out of the dark, shadows moved three of Carver's men, rifles glinting in the moonlight. Marston. One called, his voice a low growl. "Hand the girl over, and maybe we let you walk away." Anna jolted awake, eyes wide with terror. I stepped in front of her, my revolver steady. You boys know better. You take another step, I put you in the dirt. The men spread out, circling. My heart hammered. 3 against 1 was bad odds, even for a man with steady aim. Then I felt it movement beside me. Anna. She had reached for my saddlebag, fumbling, her hands shaking but determined. She pulled free my spare revolver. Its weight awkward in her grip that I hissed. Anna's eyes met mine. I won't let them take me back. Her voice trembled, but her hands, though clumsy, were steadying. The first man lunged forward, rifle raised. I fired, the crack of the shot shattering the night. He fell hard into the dirt. The others shouted, returning fire. Bullets hissed past, splintering bark, kicking up sparks from the rocks. Anna ducked low, then, with a gasp, raised the revolver and fired. The shot went wide, but close enough to send one man stumbling back in surprise. His aim faltered, giving me the breath I needed to put him down with a second shot. The last man cursed, panicked, and fled into the dark, his horse crashing through the brush. Silence rushed in again, broken only by Anna's ragged breaths. She stared at the revolver in her hands, smoke still curling from the barrel. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. I fired a gun, she whispered, almost disbelieving that I stepped to her, gently taking the weapon from her shaking fingers. You did more than that, I said softly. You stood your ground. You faced them. Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't of fear this time. They were of release, of strength she hadn't known she carried. I was so scared, she admitted, her voice breaking that I touched her cheek, brushing a tear away. With my thumb. Courage ain't the absence of fear. It's standing tall while it beats in your chest. She leaned into my hand then, her breath warm, her eyes searching mine. And for one fleeting second, the world felt still danger pushed back by the fragile, fierce bond forming between us. But I knew Carver wasn't done. Not yet. This was only the beginning. The night after the ambush stretched on like a wound that wouldn't close. The fire burned low, the smell of gunpowder still sharp in the air. Anna sat close, knees drawn up, her face pale, but her eyes alive in a way I hadn't seen before. She hadn't crumbled. She hadn't broken. She'd stood against men twice her size and lived to breathe the dawn, that I patched her trembling hands with what comfort I could, wrapping them in a cloth, giving her water, speaking in low tones until the wild rhythm of her breathing began to calm. But even as her fear ebbed, she stayed pressed close to my side, as though she'd found in me the anchor she'd never known she needed to be. Why the time the first light of morning touched the horizon, we were both too tired for words. I had kept my revolver ready all night, my back against hers, the warmth of her shoulder steadying me more than I cared to admit. When the sun rose, it painted the plains gold, the wet grass glistening from the night storm. The world looked clean, washed new. Anna stepped to the river, knelt, and let the cold water run over her hands. Her reflection shimmered on the surface, pale, worn, but proud. I watched her, leaning on my knee, the tired ache of the trail pressing heavy in my bones. She was quiet, lost in thought, until she turned her face toward me. You should have left me, she said softly, her voice carrying in the crisp morning air. Did I frowned? What makes you say that? Her gaze dropped back to the water. Every mile I ride with you, I bring danger to your trail. He won't stop until he finds us. Last night proved that. Her voice faltered. If you keep me with you, you may die for it. That I rose, crossed her, and crouched by the river's edge. The sunlight caught her hair, turning it into strands of fire. I wanted to tell her the truth, plain and simple. So I did. Anna, I said, my voice low, steady. There are worse things in this world than dying. Living with yourself after you walk away from someone who needed you, that's a death all its own. I won't carry that kind of ghost. Her lips trembled, her eyes glistening. She looked at me as though the weight of years of cruelty were finally lifting. Slowly, she reached out, hesitant at first, then firmer, and her fingers touched mine where they rested on my knee. That I don't understand you, she whispered, her voice cracking. But I want to. I want to believe in the way you see me. My throat tightened. The words caught there. I didn't say what I felt, not yet. Instead, I let my hand turn, fingers closing gently around hers. The silence between us was no longer heavy or fearful, it was full, thick with something. Unnamed but undeniable, the moment lingered, fragile and sweet. But the sound of distant hoofbeats broke it like glass. Anna stiffened. I rose, eyes narrowing toward the horizon. There, faint against the morning light, was a dust cloud. Not 3 riders this time. Not 4. A dozen or more, and leading them, riding tall and mean, was John Carver himself. The sun had risen on a new day, but so had the danger. The dust cloud grew larger with every breath, the thunder of hooves rolling across the plains like an oncoming storm. Anna stood frozen at the river's edge, her hand still half raised toward mine. Her face drained of color. But it's him, she whispered. It's father. That grabbed the reins of my horse and shoved my spare mount toward her. Ride, Anna. We can't face them out here in the open. She hesitated, fear locking her in place. But then she looked at me, really looked, and something inside her snapped free. She swung into the saddle with clumsy urgency, her braid whipping over her shoulder as she clutched the reins. We spurred the horses hard, water splashing as we crossed the river and tore across the prairie. Behind us, Carver's men gave chase, their shouts carrying across the morning air. My blood hammered in my ears, every hoofbeat a reminder that we were outnumbered and outgunned. Anna rode just ahead of me, her back straight, her body moving with the rhythm of the horse like she'd been born in the saddle. But I could see her hands trembling on the reins. I pressed closer, shouting over the wind. Stay with me. Don't look back. The land rolled out before us, endless grass broken by jutting rock and dry gullies. Then I saw it, a break in the earth, a canyon winding jagged and deep into the hills. It was narrow, treacherous, but it might give us cover. This way, I yelled, turning my horse toward the canyon mouth. Anna followed without question, her braid whipping against her back as we plunged into the ravine. The walls rose high on either side, cutting off. The sun, shadows falling over us like the closing jaws of a trap. Our horses' hooves clattered against stone, the path twisting sharp and narrow. Behind us, the echoes of pursuit grew louder. Carver's men were coming into the canyon, their whoops and curses bouncing off the walls. We pressed deeper until the canyon forked. I pulled us to the left, where a cluster of boulders offered a sliver of cover. We slid from the saddles, leading the horses behind the rocks. I pressed my back to the stone, revolver in hand, heart hammering. Anna crouched beside me, her breath ragged, eyes wide. We're trapped, she whispered. Not trapped, I said, though the lie was thin even in my own ears. We just hold until we see a way through. The hoofbeats closed in, echoing like drums. Carver's voice rang out, cruel and booming. You can't hide forever, boy. Hand her over, and maybe I'll leave you breathing. Anna flinched, her face tightening with old wounds. But then she shook her head, jaw set. She turned to me, her hand finding my sleeve. Don't give me back. Not even if it means your life. Her voice trembled, but there was steel in it, to a woman who had finally found her worth and would rather die free than live as her father's possession. I touched her hand briefly, my thumb brushing over her knuckles. I'd sooner face every gun in this canyon than see him lay a hand on you again. The hoofbeat stopped. Silence pressed in. Then a shout. The first riders rounded the bend. Then I raised my revolver. Anna's hand tightened on my sleeve. The fight had come to us. The canyon walls held the sound of silence like a coffin. Every scrape of a hoof, every ragged breath, echoed loud enough to shatter nerves. Anna crouched beside me, her hands tight in her lap, her eyes fixed on the bend where shadows shifted. At Carver's voice broke the stillness, low and cruel, bouncing off a stone. Boy, you've played a fool's game. Hand her over, and you can ride out alive. Keep her, and I'll see you bleed into this dirt. Anna flinched, but she didn't break. Her hand sought mine, trembling, desperate. I turned my palm and laced our fingers together, meeting her eyes, and, oh, I whispered, steady as steel. Not now. Not ever. Tears welled in her eyes, not of weakness, but of something fiercer. She pressed her forehead briefly to mine, breath hot with fear and hope. Then, whatever happens, she whispered, we face it together. The first rider stepped into view, rifle raised. Then another. The canyon filled with shadows of men, their horses restless, their faces hard. And behind them rode Carver. His eyes found Anna first, hard as flint, then me, and his mouth curled into a smile sharp enough to cut. "You think you can take from me what's mine?" he snarled. "She's worth gold, land, power. And you're nothing but dust." That I rose slowly from behind the rock, revolver steady in my hand. My voice carried louder than I felt. "She's worth more than your gold, more than your greed. She's her own, Carver, and you'll never own her again." His face twisted with rage. He drew his gun. For a heartbeat, time held still. The shot cracked through the canyon like thunder. Dust burst, horses screamed. I fired back, the recoil jerking my arm. Anna screamed my name, the sound sharp and raw. When the smoke cleared, Carver's men had scattered in chaos, their courage broken by the echo of gunfire in the tight stone walls. And there, Carver lay in the dirt, his gun fallen, his eyes wide with the final shock of defeat. Silence reclaimed the canyon. Heavy and final, Anna pressed into me, her hands clutching my coat, her sobs hot against my chest. "It's over," she whispered, voice breaking. "It's finally over." I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her close, breathing in the wild scent of her hair, the storm of her relief. For the first time since Red Creek, her shoulders sagged, not with fear, but with freedom. The canyon walls no longer felt like a trap. They felt like a gate opening onto something new. That I kissed her hair, my voice low against her ear. "You're free now, Anna. Free to choose your life. And if you'll have me, I'd give mine to walk it beside you." She lifted her face, eyes shining with tears and sunlight. Her lips trembled into the first true smile I'd ever seen on her. She nodded once, fierce and sure. The world beyond the canyon was still dangerous, still uncertain. But as we walked out hand in hand, the sun breaking bright above the cliffs, I knew one truth clearer than any love, chosen freely, was worth more than all the gold in the West.